All right, good morning, Giri. So today we're discussing vegan diet, vegans, veganism, and I think we're entitling this Vegans, the Ultimate CowKillers. So that ought to raise a few eyebrows. Vegans, the Ultimate CowKillers. So let me first, Giri, let me qualify the title of this video first, but even before I say that, let me also say that yes, there are some merits to the vegan diet, and we'll get into basically the pros and the cons. But first, we're gonna let me say something about the title, which is definitely a con, and that's also a pun. It's also a con. So I have here, and our listeners can look on various vegan websites, and you'll find some nice statements of purpose. We also did a little bit of research into where the vegan diet really began, who were some of the first, and what were the reasons behind that. So first let me say this, that it was about 15 years ago. I had an exchange with the head of the Vegan Society. I forget exactly what name they had, but the Vegan Society in India with their offices in Delhi. So I had a conversation through emails with the then president. I forget whether it was a man or a woman. Can you?
It was a woman. It was actually PETA. It was PETA.
PETA. Oh yeah, right. PETA,
yeah.
The PETA organization.
Yeah.
So the reason we say vegans, the ultimate CowKillers, is to understand the ultimate value of any philosophy or ideal. You take it to its ultimate, like, what if? For example, we would say, what if everyone became Krishna conscious? Now, and when I say Krishna conscious, I mean, what if to the level of Srila Prabhupada, or not his exact level, but something really close. What if everyone became a pure devotee of Krishna? What if? What would the world be like? And you look, what would crime be like? What would illicit activities, pedophilia, and all these... What would all these nonsense things, what would wars be like? What would all these things be like? And if everyone, everybody on both sides of the ocean, the white hats, the black hats, the gray hats, everybody became a pure devotee of Krishna. Wow, the world would be Vaikuntha, you see. So you can say what if about any particular philosophy or ideal of life, be it communism or capitalism or what have you, and get an idea of what would happen. Mm-hmm. So I posed this question to this member of, what's it called, PETA? PETA. Not PETA, PETA.
PETA. Yeah.
PETA. What's that mean? That ethical...
Protection and ethical treatment of animals.
Yeah. Protection and ethical treatment of animals. I said, well, what if everyone became a vegan? Mm-hmm. What would be the fate of the cows? Because in the vegan diet, the cow has no function. It has no purpose. And so their reply was that, well, whatever cows they are, if that actually happened, the cows would be turned out to the forest. So I said, well, there's a problem there because the cow is a domestic animal, and without the human intervention, many problems manifest immediately for the cow. And I said the first one is, even if the cow, which the cow can do, make it through birth without human help, although in most cases, I have seen many calves born, and at one end of the calf is a human pulling with both hands the legs of the calf, pulling it out of the mother, and had the human not been there, well, there's going to be some serious complications for the mother and probably the death of the calf and the mother. But sometimes it happens, you go to the Goshala and go, wow, in the middle of the night she gave birth to her calf. No human assistance, not intervention, but assistance. All right, so any of you who have been around a Goshala, and most of these so-called animal protection people, and particularly these vegans, they've never been anywhere near a barn. And they have no idea what animal life is and what the relationship between the animal and the human being is. Well, here's one of the things that happens, is the calf stands up within minutes, actually, which is very, very rare. A human being sometimes takes, well, up to in the second year or late in the first year, I forget what it is, before a human being stands up and walks. But a calf stands up within minutes, you see.
Right.
Within minutes of being born. And it is also born with an instinctive hunger. And it doesn't take the calf long to figure out where the food comes from. And it is going to the udder of the mother. And, well, there's a whole thing of the detail there. There's the first milk that comes from a cow is very different than the milk that's coming on the second or third day. But the detail of that aside, if you allow a baby calf to drink all the milk in the udder of its mother, the calf will die.
Right.
You allow the calf to drink a set amount of that milk, and then you take the calf away, and there's a lot of milk left in that udder. Then what happens is, if you, the human, don't extract that milk from the udder, and you leave that milk in the udder, then the mother herself develops what's called mastitis.
Right.
Which is a disease in the udder, and that will kill the cow. So if the cow is simply in the jungle, faring on its own, the calf's going to die, or the mother's going to die, or they're both are going to die. So if you release all the cows and bulls into the forest, well, then, there's going to be a lot of cows dying. But let's say the bulls, so I put this thing, but let's say that doesn't happen, and the bulls certainly, they'll exist for a while, but then if no more calves are born, then they'll also die out. But let's say somehow nature can adjust, and they will live in the forest like the deers live in the forest, and they will simply reproduce. Every so many months, the bulls will impregnate the cows will give birth. And Giri, do you have that statement? When I said to them, what will happen when all the cows simply reproduce? Now, these are the vegans. These are the ethical protection of animal people. Do you have that statement from her email?
This woman from PETA, she said, this is a quote, direct quote, there would either be no domesticated cattle or wilder breeds would be let free in reserves. Culling would be necessary to control numbers.
Culling is another word for killing.
Yeah.
So if they produce in abundance in the forest, then the vegans are prepared to go into the forest and kill them in order to regulate their numbers. You see. So what this boils down to is, although there are some merits, and we will get into those, and there are some definite things to appreciate from the vegans overall in general, it boils down to two mistakes don't make a wrong. No, sorry.
Right.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
Right.
That's what it is. I sound like George Bush, right? So two wrongs don't make a right. So from one of the very visible, very, very valid complaints that the vegan points to is that the animals in the dairy industry are grossly mistreated in most cases, the commercial milk dairies, the commercial dairies. And not only they are mistreated, but the milk is contaminated in various ways, And I'm not talking about the pasteurization of the milk. I'm talking about the amount of, what are they called, antibiotics that the cows are fed, the even non-vegetarian food, cow food that the cows are fed. And because of the industrialized methodology, that oftentimes the udders of the cow are infected with small, I don't know, anything from blisters to mastitis itself, and that in this mass milking process where hundreds and hundreds of cows are lined up and hooked up to machines and the milk is being sucked out of the cows, it's often not noticed that there's an infection on the udder, and even pus and blood gets sucked down into the milk and ends up, after processing, you drink it. You open your fridge, you pour up your nice glass of cold milk and you drink it. And so, that's a fact. But to reject milk and thus milk products and reject the cow itself, that's not the solution.
Right. In fact, I was just going to mention, in the last line of that correspondence you had with that lady, her suggestion was this. She said, the best way to help the cow is by spreading awareness amongst people by giving up milk and not using any of their products for any use.
Yeah, so that's going to help the cow. Then who the hell wants to keep a cow? There's no use to the cow, and the tractors replace the bull. So then everybody, and all these people with these, where's that lady living? Delhi. Yeah. Living in Delhi. Where are these people living? Chicago, New York, London, living in their nice high-rise, Burlington, Vermont, living in their nice apartments, in their condos, in their, wherever. And they're completely out of touch with nature, completely out of touch with reality.
Yeah.
So, vegetarian is an answer. And what we refer to as the family cow. There is your answer. Now, any food product, anything that's industrialized, in fact, there's a saying out there, if you see it on the television, an advertisement, don't eat it.
Don't buy it. Yeah.
Don't eat it. It's poisonous. So we were in a health food store yesterday, and here in Mexico, and there was a selection of power bars, and this is a health food store, and so we grabbed one of them when we were just and looking at the label, and the best thing in that power bar was sugar. I mean, and sugar is not very highly rated as a health food. Okay,
right,
and certainly excessive sugar is very bad for your health. You see, now it may be that people do have valid health issues with milk. A lot of this comes from the milk that they have is not from the family cow. It's the industrialized milk. It's homogenized. It's pasteurized. The cheeses that they eat are not fresh cheeses. They're aged cheeses. They have rennets in them, other types of preservatives. It's a product. It's like taking honey, which is a pure product. And, of course, vegans don't take honey either because it comes from another creature. Somehow it comes made by this other creature. So strict vegans will not take honey either. And I lost my thought there. Help me out there, Giri. I lost my thought.
You were talking about...
You lost yours too, huh?
I lost my thought as well, yeah.
All right, well, I was saying where were we on that? Yeah. All right, so people do have some valid complaints, but we've experienced devotees coming from the West to our ashram in South India, where we have a very nice goshala and we have wonderful milk products, and when we have offered them some nice whole milk from the family cow, from the ashram cow, they respond by saying, oh, well, I've got an allergy to milk, or I don't do well.
Lactose intolerant.
I'm lactose intolerant. This. In the time of Srila Prabhupada, we never even heard that word, lactose intolerant. It's almost like the power of suggestion. Oh, the fault is the milk. You can't tolerate the milk. And then, but we've said, not just once, but at least I think 3 devotees I can think of, where we said, well, just try this and see, this might be a little bit different. And they have a completely positive reaction to that milk. Because the milk that they're referring to is this poisonous crap that they sell in all the supermarkets throughout not just the Western world, but even in India now.
Yeah.
This industrialized, homogenized, pasteurized, zapped and whatever milk. And this is the cause. Also, we see that children are, what do you call it, have all these types of developing allergies. And these things didn't exist 2 generations ago.
Right.
My grandparents had a dairy. And I remember from forever. In fact, we have a couple of those bottles that survive, kind of like family, what do you call them,
Heirlooms.
Yeah, from the Klein, it was called Klein, Kline, the Klein Dairy, Klein Brothers Dairy. And in those days, milk came in a glass bottle. It came from your local dairy. And at the top of the milk was a big head of cream.
Right.
Because cream rises, you see. And at different times of the year, the color of that cream would also change.
Right.
In midsummer up to early fall, that cream was very yellowy, strong yellow, because cows were eating an abundance of green grass. But
Right.
in winter, even butter itself looked very whitish, hardly yellow at all. But now you go to the supermarket and you buy butter at any time of the year. If you want to buy butter, you buy butter at any time of the year, and it's yellow. But that's not possible because cows don't eat green grass, and green grass makes yellow butter, yellow milk. And dry feeds make a very whitish type of cream, a whitish type of milk. So how is it it's yellow all the time? Are they somehow giving all these cows good, fresh green grass? No. There's chemicals in the butter to make it yellow.
Right.
See. So all the products, the cheese, the butter, the milk, all these things are contaminated. They're polluted. They're poisonous. And children today are exclusively being raised on these contaminated milk products. And they're not having any whole milk, and it just so happens that whole milk has got almost every vitamin that the human body needs. And these processed milk, the kids are being deprived of their essential food elements in their developing stages of both the body and the mind, and they're coming out with all kinds of problems. Add to that the vaccinations with the, what's that chemical, the mercury, and it's like 1 in 3 kids develops autism. And all kinds of impediments are there in children today, and allergies. And in many cases, people have proven out that whole milk itself is a cure for many of these allergies. All right, so another pro, I would say, of the vegan diet is that personally myself, whenever I'm traveling in the world and in a city and there's no devotee family to have go to the house for Prashadam, and there's living in a hotel and having to go out to a restaurant, if there's no Indian restaurant, my first choice is a vegan restaurant. Although the food tastes like cardboard, you're almost assured that you're not going to get some egg or some contaminated thing, because these vegans are almost militant about it. But the food is very bland as far as I've ever seen, and except for a few places. There's this one restaurant up there in Vermont called Sweet Alchemy, which has managed to make tasty, very, very tasty vegan foods. And it's quite the rage amongst the vegans. But it's not a vegan restaurant. It's vegetarian, devotee owned.
Right.
So there, yeah. So if you're traveling in the world, and you want to be sure, because I've been in a lot of so-called vegetarian establishments that weren't really vegetarian, that didn't really draw the fine line to really look at the ingredients of whatever it was. And,
right.
And there would be some, particularly it would be egg or rennet in the old days. The rennet in cheese.
The cheese, yeah.
Would come from slaughtered cows and things like that. So that's a plus, you see. But simply ignoring the cow and boycotting the cow industry, you see, that might be good for just your regular materialists. They think they're doing something good. You see, I'm not going to buy your milk product because you mistreat the cows, And you know what? When I do that, I feel morally superior.
Yeah.
You see? That's I can feel good about myself because I'm not contributing to that mistreatment of the cows, you see. But like I pointed out in the beginning, ultimately you're contributing to the ultimate end of all cows and bulls because you recognize no value in that animal. It's just like that politician there in the United States, that young lady, they call her Crazy Cortez. She wants to, her new Green Deal is to ban all air travel. You get 2 airplane flights in your lifetime, according to the new Green Deal, and no cows. No cows. Yeah. Get rid of all the cows.
Yeah.
You see, that's the new green. That sounds like the new blood deal.
Yeah.
Get rid of all the cows. Why does she want to get rid of all the cows? Because it's been proven that when you have these mass herds of cows and you bring them together, particularly at the time of slaughter, I've seen in the Midwest in the United States and a few other places in the world, but mainly in the United States, the cattle yards stretch for as far as the eye can see. No grass, just brown dirt, and cows just massed together, waiting to be loaded in the cattle cars to be sent off to the slaughterhouses in Chicago and Kansas and other places around the country. They pass an intense amount of gas.
Methane, yeah.
Methane gas.
Yeah.
And they're all in one place. And the amount of methane that from those big bodies, when they pass air, it's a lot of air. And that methane is by tens of thousands of cows. And it rises up and burns holes in the ozone layer.
Right.
Which then they relate to climate change. So the solution to climate change is no more cows. So that lady's not even got 32 ounces. That's somewhere around 12 to 16.
That's very generous of you.
Yeah. Apparently her mathematics in the tax, understanding economy and whatnot. But, I mean, what do you expect? She was a bartender. I mean, what's the most expensive drink in a bar cost?
Right.
$5, So anyway, that's the solution. No cows. Well, that's an asinine solution. The solution is stop killing the cows, stop herding them together in mass to take them off to the slaughterhouse. And you know what? If it boils down to the family cow and all that type of thing, the small dairy, let's say, it's hard for, it's impractical today, isn't it? How is everybody going to have a family cow? Yeah. These city populations. Well, guess what? Maybe these gigantic cities and colossal neighborhoods of row housing wasn't a good idea. So really, the world has put it. The human civilization has put itself in a pathetic situation. Absolutely pathetic. So, and another thing that happens is, this gets. We don't have this talk totally planned out. We just have a few things to share with our listeners. But another thing is the vegans admit the value of milk by trying to replace it with something else. And they're not trying to replace it because, well, you're attached to milk, so we'll give you something else to drink, like soy milk or almond milk. And you call it milk. It's not milk. Some of those products may be all right to an extent, but the one that rose up was the soy, right? Soy milk, soy milk, soy milk, soy products, soy milk. Well, then it turned out after about a decade or two of this, it turns out that this excessive use of the soy products is feminizing men.
Yeah.
Feminizing men. Even making men grow breasts. That's really a good one, you know. So it's feminizing men. And it's not very good for children. You know, we have quite a few nice quotes here from Srila Prabhupada to read here that will be appreciated by the devotees. Of course, any vegan or vegan devotee out there is probably pulling his hair or her hair out by now to hear me railing on the vegans, calling them cow killers. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. By their own admission, we will go into the forest and kill the cows. They are now cow killers. You see, or we will do. They're being mistreated, so now we'll just let them all die, and then there'll be no mistreatment of cows. You know, that sounds like
one of their arguments.
Yeah,
the vegans is that they say that human beings are the only species to drink another species' milk, which is absolute nonsense.
That's not right. Even ants,
because ants, cats. You give them a bowl of cow's milk. Cats will drink milk. Dogs will drink milk. There's so many animals that drink the milk of other beings.
And then they'll say, "Well, that's that's because the humans intervene." It's just like, listen, without human intervention, your mom might have died when you were being born. You ever hear of a midwife?
Right.
Humans intervene with humans. Human intervenes everywhere. I mean, if you look at a biblical, a biblical version of the world, the human is, God's gift to the earth, you see, which is also partly Vedic. Humans are custodians of the earth, and all these, types of things. So their view, is it, do they have a, what would you call it, a God-conscious view? Or are these vegans evolutionists? You see, if there's evolution, nothing matters. There is not even karma. There's no reaction. It's just enjoy life. And what the hell does it matter if animals are mistreated? Nothing matters.
It's all chemicals. Ultimately, break it down, it's all chemicals in the end.
Yes, it's all, it goes to the scientific view. It's just we're all just a mass of moving chemicals. We're not even here, actually. We're just passing through, you see. Or if you have you're a Buddhist vegan or a Christian vegan or, God forbid, a Hare Krishna vegan. We'll get around to that, won't we? So, what did Srila Prabhupada want? What does every Acharya wanted who had a mission, particularly in this modern world? And that is to show people by example how to live. Right. Show people by example the position of and purpose of the human being. And so for devotees to become vegans, well, this is a far cry from setting the example. Right. For a devotee to, just kind of crumple in and surrender to this vegan ideal, basically is nonsense.
Well, what gets my goat is when devotees say, well, if Srila Prabhupada was here now, he would be a vegan.
No, he wouldn't.
Pretty presumptuous.
Actually, it was pointed out to Srila Prabhupada that milk in his time in the United States was contaminated. Now, originally it was called vitamin D fortified. And vitamin D fortified milk in the 40s and 50s was cod liver oil. Yeah. Cod liver oil. It comes from fish. Nowadays, it's a synthesized, I don't know where in the heck it comes from. It's probably another oil product. But vitamin D fortified was a non-vegetarian product that was added to milk. And when this was pointed out to Srila Prabhupada, he said, what to do? We are not fanatics.
He said Krishna wants his milk.
Krishna wants milk. Now, several things come into play here. Let's put it this way. We've all seen that changing body exhibit, right? The one that was very popular in ISKCON in the late 70s and 80s. It showed from birth to death and the transition of bodies in life. Well, there was another diorama. We call them the dioramas, and they were fiberglass, and everybody was using them on campus for preaching. There was another one. It started with a painting, and then they made a diorama out of it, and it was a guy cutting the head. He was killing a cow with an axe. The cow was tied with its head down, but the thing was, the guy had a cow's head, and the cow had a man's head. In other words, it was like, hey, take a look at this, people. This is what's going on. So let's just imagine now, you, one of my listeners out there, or our listeners out there, you're a cow. You're a cow, but you're a conscious cow with a human understanding of life. And you're in a dairy, and you're being milked, you see. Now, there are two options here. You're being mistreated, you're being milked, you see. A product from you, the cow. And a devotee comes to the dairy to buy that milk and takes that to offer that milk to Krishna. Or you can say to that devotee, don't buy my milk, don't offer my milk to Krishna, and I'll just sit here and suffer with no benefit whatsoever. Now, being a devotee, what would you do? You know that there's some benefit for the cow.
Right.
If the milk of the cow is offered to Krishna, some benefit, however small benefit it may be, goes to the cow. But if the devotee deprives the cow of offering its milk or her milk to Krishna, then the devotee is spiritually depriving. In the old days, devotees used to think in such a broad, magnanimous way. They'd go into the vegetable and fruit section in a supermarket and stand there and pull out their Gayatri mantra thread and chant a Gayatri over the whole fruit section of a supermarket.
Offer it all,
But, and that's like, well, I don't know if it really works that way. But the idea was to benefit and benefit humanity. Srila Prabhupada said once upon a time that whatever food substance a devotee gives to another person by his hand, whether it's offered or not, is prashadam. In India, where then and now we're always faced with street beggars, I'll oftentimes a group of children will come up begging. They see a saib, they want to beg, they want some money and everything. I'll walk over to one of those,
a chai store,
like a chai shop, and buy them some biscuits, or if there's a fruit vendor there, I'll buy a bunch of bananas. And and I don't sit there, hold on, kids, Namo Om Vishnu Padaya, and chant some mantras and make an offering. I take the food, remembering what Srila Prabhupada said, not thinking highly of myself, but thinking of myself. I am his servant, and he said, what comes from our hands to people is prashadam, and give it to them. So the nature of a devotee is to think magnanimously towards how to help not just other human beings, but all living beings. We used to sell the BTGs on the street back in this early 70s, and we'd hand the BTG to a guy with a suit and tie, on Wall Street or wherever in the financial district in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or wherever it was, and guy's got a briefcase, suit and tie, he's wearing an $800 suit. We'd say, sir, we're handing out these magazines today, we're helping poor people. And in our mind, we were thinking, you're the poor man we're helping. In his mind, he's thinking, oh, you mean those people who don't have any clothes and no food? Thinking they're poor. No, we're thinking he's poor. The millionaire is poor. Donald Trump, a billionaire, and all his guys, they are poor. One who does not have Krishna consciousness is a poor man. or a poor woman. So the nature of devotees is to think magnanimously. So when devotees think that they're helping the cows by becoming vegans, you're not giving them any help at all. And guess what? Your veganism isn't going to change the food market at all.
No, the cows will still be slaughtered.
Exactly. They'll be raised, if for nothing else, just for the meat.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so two wrongs don't make a right. You see, the abuse of the cow is not rectified by the boycott of the cow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, furthermore, we had that quote the other day from Srila Prabhupada who was saying to, I forget who it was, who was saying, well, there's nothing to eat when we go to Russia. Prabhupada said, well, if there's nothing to eat, you can eat meat.
Oh, to Harikesh.
Harikesh. And then he said, well, what about my consciousness? And Prabhupada said, the hell with your consciousness. The preacher must go on. So what I see, well, not just many of us see this. It's just like this, we want to be popular. We want to be accepted. So we're giving in to so many things. To the Hindus, we're giving in to Ganesh Puja and Shiva Puja, and in India, Naga Puja, and all these things. In the temples, we're giving in to that. In the West, we're giving into the yoga scene, the enjoyable bhajan scene, the Bhakti Fest. We're surrendering to the popular vegan diet, etc.
Interfaith.
Yeah, that's another thing. Interfaith,
Yeah.
Anybody who's in an interfaith is either laughing in your face afterwards, because there is no interfaith. It's just like, that is not Krishna consciousness, that it's all one. It's not all one. There's gradations of everything. And that especially includes religion, spiritual conception. And if you look into the Christians, in fact, devotees have all heard about the Antichrist. Well, in hardcore Christian circles, the Antichrist is Krishna consciousness. In any other form of yoga practice, that is the current 21st century, 2019 Antichrist, as proclaimed by the church. The church and many of its branches has proclaimed a meditation of any type, or to speak of mantra meditation, as the work of the devil. You see? Yep. Well, there's some truth in that. The truth is that the word devil, if you look it up etymologically and study the history of language, you'll see that the word devil was derived from the word deva, which means God. So
we're devil worshippers.
So yeah, we're devil worshippers in the purest sense of the word. You see. So, I had this I was gonna read this. Where is that? Statement of purpose. That was the vegans. Okay, here was an early statement. This comes from way back. You'll find variations to the vegan statement of purpose. Statement of purpose. All sentient beings, regardless of species, have inherent value and should not be treated as property of others. Now that gets really weird. That means you can't own a horse, you can't own a bill, can't own a bow. And someone's going to say, you can't own your kids either. All living beings, regardless of species, humans included. So you can't own one. Well, that would include slavery, of course. We agree. But somebody's going to go up and say, in fact, they're already saying that if you listen close to some of the government policies, you can't own your kids either.
Right.
To this purpose, we seek to abolish, not merely regulate, animal exploitation. Well, this sounds good on the surface. And the last thing is, animals are not ours. So, no pets, sorry. All the dogs run wild. I mean, this is an asinine philosophy, actually. If you look at it, you can't own a dog. Let that dog go in the street. Do you know what happens? You know what happens when dogs run in the street? Well, I double dare you to walk from Krishna Balaram Temple to Radharaman Temple at 3:30 in the morning to be at Radharaman Temple for a Mangal Artik in Vrindavan, and no stick and no rock in your hands. You can be killed by the dogs in the street. People get attacked by dogs. People get attacked by monkeys in Vrindavan. Rabid dogs, no dogs. Dogs running in the street. Cats everywhere. Cats aren't so bad. They don't carry rabies and attack human beings per se, you see. No interference, deers everywhere. We'll just let deers run around everywhere. There'll be no gardens. Deers come and eat the gardens. So what do we have to what do people in the world have to do? Well, the Kshatriyas used to go into the forest, and the soldiers, and they would hunt tiger and they would hunt deer and all these type of things, and the population was kept under control, you see. So, but it says here, no property, no owning of animals. So now all the dogs will run wild, all the cats will run wild, the cows will go into the forest, they'll come out and be walking on the roads. This is an asinine philosophy.
Yep.
You see, it holds no water when it gets put to some practical test.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's another one. To change species attitudes. Okay. Just as we reject racism, sexism, ageism, a couple other weirdisms here, we reject all heterosexism, we also reject speciesism. Oh, really? So now, when we reject speciesism, then you allow bestiality to enter, right? I mean, at one point, homosexuality was frowned upon. Mm-hmm. Now, I said years ago, in the future, pedophilia will not be frowned upon. And people said, oh, well, that's ridiculous. Really? It wasn't frowned upon in Greece.
No,
it wasn't frowned upon in Rome.
Japan.
It used to be frowned upon if a woman's dress went above her ankles, and it went above her ankles, and it went above her knees. Now they run around topless. A equals B equals Z. Mm-hmm. So now, no gender, no race, no species. So human beings fornicating, men fornicating with men fornicating with sheep. That's how venereal disease was born. Mm-hmm. This veganism, the more I look at it, it's like no races. There are no races, right? There are no races. Right. This is so foolish. This is to say every civilization that there was on the earth produced by a race of people, they might be color-coded or eye-coded or some kind of visible or non-visible physical thing. They're all the same, really. Yeah. They really are, really, huh?
This is just another type of impersonalism.
Total impersonalism.
Yeah.
Total impersonalism, you see. How do you look at a civilization? You look at music. How many musical instruments does this? You look at poetry. You look at literature. You look at language itself. There are still many languages on this earth today that have no written script. That the civilization that developed the language doesn't even have a written script. In fact, when I was preaching in Africa and I was learning Swahili, we had a Swahili teacher who would come to the Nairobi temple a couple times a week and teach us Swahili. And we were getting books translated, Prabhupada's books. There were problems. One of the problems is there was no word for consciousness, the Swahili language. And so we had to translate Krishna Consciousness' topmost yoga system as Ufahama wa Krishna. There was no word for consciousness, the consciousness of Krishna. But there was this more, it's kind of an aboriginal understanding of to understand, to know things. And it ends up, the language was basically eat, sleep, mate, and defend. The basics of aboriginal existence is all that language could describe. the finer sentiments of the human being, the finer qualities of the human being. There were no words in that language to describe it. So, but people today, they want to erase everything. They want to erase family. They want to just erase everything. Well, I've never been one to agree that any race had the right of superiority over another race of human beings. But to say that to eliminate any
differentiation
is like, oh yeah, let tigers just walk in and roam around the city over there in Assam, You shouldn't discriminate. Cats, tigers, hey, well, let it all hang out, Let it all hang. Then it's not human civilization. It's animal civilization. Without discriminate, that's the thing that the human being has that gives the human being the edge, and that is discrimination. Animals have sometimes more discrimination than human, like they can just smell something and know whether they should eat it or not, you see. But ever so often also their senses are bewildered.
Right.
And you see cows in India eating plastic and garbage, fish in the ocean. I just saw some news item, a whale washed up on the beach somewhere in Australia. Its belly was full of plastic. Lack of discrimination. So the human being is throwing his and her discrimination away, you see. So when you look at this vegan, even this basic opening statement of purpose, it's just, it's like, it's got lots of holes in it.
Mm-hmm.
We are committed to educating the public about animal rights issues. At all times, we advocate a veganism as a moral baseline and as a compassionate, rational, and healthy way of life. Healthy? All these got, yeah, there are a few sports people, macho guys and girls out there have gone vegan, but we haven't seen that they got to that stage from veganism. And yes, ethical treatment of animals, we shouldn't do this and this, but rejecting all the things is no solution to the problem. And as Giri, you pointed out, they will continue to raise the cows and slaughter them just because you stop taking the milk, etc. So the real solution is to show the proper relation between the human being and the cow. Cow as mother, bull as father, the value of the milk products for developing strong bodies and healthy minds, etc., as Srila Prabhupada wished to show in the West. All right, so Giri, you have some, whichever ones you feel inspired to share with us first, quotes of Srila Prabhupada, or you want to get into those or what?
Yep, definitely. There's a class in Los Angeles, October the 1st, 1972 here. Srila Prabhupada says, so long as we are in the material platform, the goodness is liable to be adulterated, just like you purchase milk from the market or anything. There is adulteration. So Srila Prabhupada was he knew this was happening.
Yeah.
It was very obvious to Srila Prabhupada that this was happening. And that sort of brings me back to what we were saying before, a remembrance of Malati, one of the early disciples of Srila Prabhupada. She said that Srila Prabhupada was informed that store-bought vitamin D enriched milk for deity milk sweets and even devotee late-night consumption may be contaminated. Hearing that the vitamin D was taken from cod liver fish oil, but Srila Prabhupada still allowed its use. Regarding this incident, Srila Prabhupada rather sadly commented, what can be done? Krishna wants his milk.
Yes, that's what I was referring to. I couldn't remember where that was. I'm glad that you found that reference. That was in relation to a comment or a letter to who?
No, that was Malati, one remembrance of her.
It's her remembrance. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So again, Srila Prabhupada in a lecture in Hawaii says, so if you get milk, then you can prepare so many preparations full of vitamins which will nourish your brain. Mm-hmm. Dull brain cannot understand what is spiritual knowledge. Mm-hmm. So we have to make our brain very clean, and for that purpose you require to drink not very much, at least 1 pound or half a pound of milk daily. That is essential. Less intelligent people underestimate the value of cow's milk. Cow's milk is also called Gaurava, or the juice from the body of the cow. Milk is the most important form of Gaurava, and from milk we can prepare many important and valuable foodstuffs for the upkeep of the human body.
So let me I'm following you here on my paper.
Yeah.
Let me say this again to stress it, if not to anybody else, at least to our own community. Although we sometimes, like at our restaurant there in Vermont, we have many vegan options. However, we do not say we are vegans. In fact, we're not even vegetarians, actually. So if someone clips this video, I have a video out there, Narasingha Maharaj says he's not even a vegetarian. No, it's true. I'm not a vegetarian. I'm a Prashaditarian. And I think you have a quote there. Srila Prabhupada is also saying, we are not vegetarians. We are Prashaditarians.
Right.
You want to read that one right now?
Yeah, there's 2 letters. One to Tushta Krishna, one to Nandarani.
That's Tushta Krishna?
Yeah, in Hawaii, yeah. So Prabhupada says, of course, we are not interested in giving them, means the students, who that they're preaching to, vegetarian food. We are wanting to give them prasadam. Then gradually they will become devotees. Then to Nandarani, 1968 October, Prabhupada says, regarding vegetarian movement, practically we are not very much interested with such partial movement. We have taken the supreme sublime movement, Krishna Consciousness, which includes all other subordinate movements. So we have accepted something which is all-including. So don't worry about this vegetarian movement, if they are not inclined to understand what is Krishna Consciousness. We have no quarrel either with vegetarian or non-vegetarian, because according to Bhagavad-gita, both of them are sinful.
Yes, that verse in Bhagavad-gita, that if one eats foodstuffs, any kind of foodstuffs, means vegetarian foodstuffs, which is not offered to the Supreme Lord, then veritably one is eating only karma, papa. Of course, the papa of eating an unoffered tomato is certainly less than eating a big slab of beefsteak or a leg of a chicken. I personally, I can't even understand how people can just contemplate, I'm going to eat a chicken leg. Say it again and think about it. I'm going to eat a chicken leg. Say it again and think about it. I'm going to stick the leg of a chicken in my mouth and I'm going to eat the leg of a chicken. It's just like, are these people dull-brained or what? So the vegetarian might be a little bit more enlightened in the mode of goodness sense. Surely, tomatoes, potatoes, French fries, and the lot.
It's still exploiting.
It's still exploiting. It's not pure, and but it's in a higher mode. It's not the lowest mode of ignorance. You see, so having to. There's no prasadam you have to eat. Well, we will
take vegetables.
We'll go vegetarian. We'll go vegetarian, right? We won't go. Oh, there's no prasadam. Give me a Big Mac.
Right.
Give me a steak. Give me a bucket of chicken nuggets from Kentucky.
Well, in the same letter, Prabhupada makes a really nice point here. He says, if Krishna wants vegetable foodstuff, therefore we supply him vegetable foodstuff. And if he wants non-vegetarian foodstuff, we can offer him also. But he does not want it, as it is explicitly stated in the Gita. So we are concerned with Krishna Prasadam, neither vegetarian or non-vegetarian.
Yes. And Krishna wants his milk.
Yes.
And from milk comes yogurt. From yogurt comes ghee, butter. From butter comes ghee. And ghee is an essential ingredient in the performance of yagyas. And actually, it's essential even in the Sankirtan yagya. You see? Because Sankirtan, Srila Prabhupada said at least in one place, that whenever a program is held, that would be like in a hall or some kind of a hall or in the temple, after a program, there must be prashad distribution.
Right.
And prashadam in India is known as two types, paka and kacha. Now, kacha means like second class in the general term. But what kacha means in relation to prashadam is, because there is no such thing as second class prashadam, right? So what is kacha prashad? Like in Vrindavan, particularly in the old days, you would get invited to a Brajabasi's house and, oh, Maharaja, you please come. It's such and such. We're having some event. Will you please come? Prashad is all paka.
Right.
And sometimes you'd hear someone say, oh, Maharaja, you please come and take prashad in the house. Kacha prashad. Well, if you thought street talk, kacha means second class. What's he saying? Please come and take some second class prashadam in my house? What do you mean? So in relation to prashadam, kacha and paka means ghee. And even sweet rice is considered kacha.
Right.
But some may say, no, it's also paka because it's milk. Right. So but that's okay. But paka and kacha means prashad, which is full dairy, ghee fried, begum bhaji,
Right.
Everything like that. And kacha would mean non-fried, and in some cases, someone may say that means non-milk, maybe vegan, kacha prashad. You see.
Well, that's the trend now I'm seeing. If you do a little research and you look online, you'll see a lot of programs in temples now. They're announcing programs and they're saying, and there'll be a vegan feast afterwards. It's very popular now to do that.
Yeah. See, that's the thing, popular. We want to be popular. And with popularity, proper conception goes out the window. Your purity actually goes out the window, slowly, slowly. Now, there may be somebody out there who goes, listen, I understand fully what Prabhupada wants and cows, and I understand all that. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to attract people. Well, the problem is the people you attract, well, they're not getting the message that, oh, you're just doing this to attract me. Actually, the cow has value, all this kind of stuff. And it's a slippery slope. And then you say, well, yeah, but once they're attracted, then we'll tell them about the real thing. It's like, will you? Really? Is that what's going to happen? Well, what seems to be happening is, no, it isn't. That's not what's happening. People are beginning to believe their own propaganda.
Exactly.
Now, you've heard me say this many times. Propaganda exists. What's a propaganda? Well, propaganda a lot of times is a white lie to benefit somebody else, you see. And this is sometimes, oftentimes, the fact in preaching. And Giri, you sent me this morning a couple of examples of Prabhupada using the propaganda in order to preach, but he's not believing it himself necessarily. And it was about, I said, try to look up where Prabhupada says we have 100 temples, and in every temple we have 300 devotees. Mm-hmm. Well, I heard that on a lecture tape in 1971, I think. And I was in the Salt Lake City preaching temple. It was a temple, is what we called it, the Salt Lake City Temple. And there were 4 of us. And Srila Prabhupada says, we have 100 temples or something and 300 devotees in every temple. And we all looked at each other like, oh, wow, we're really out of the loop. And then we thought, really? Tucson only has 10, and this one only has 15, and this one only has 20. And Prabhupada is saying, in all our temples, we have 300 devotees.
In one interview, he says we have 60 centers, and each one average 100 devotees.
60 centers, average 100 devotees. Even today, you will never even get close to that average. Mm-hmm. Unless you count the folk members, the life members. No. Who's living in the brahmacharini ashram, and how many resident sannyasis do you have? And you count it, you do not get 100. So what is that? That is propaganda.
Right.
I also asked you to see if you could find that recorded, but you couldn't find it, but I'm sure existed once upon a time, because, again, I heard it and it just kind of stuck. And Prabhupada was saying that it was a lecture in India, or I believe it was even in Vrindavan, and he said that in New York, all businessmen are chanting japa with bead bag in hand. All businessmen in New York. You know how many businessmen there are in New York? There are tens of thousands of them. Well, the fact was, there was only Atreya Rishi, who was a business accountant. Right. And maybe Gopal Krishna Prabhu, who was...
He was working for Coca-Cola. He's an executive in Coca-Cola or something.
Right. These are the two businessmen in New York who were chanting japa. Now, Giri, you just summarize that day you walked into the temple in Mayapur about 20 years ago, and there was a Bengali sannyasi preaching to a bunch of Bengalis, and you, knowing Bengali, you could understand what he was saying, and he was telling the people that President George Bush is the number one
follower of Prabhupada.
Tell us, what did he say?
he was telling all these Bengali villagers, he was saying that, he said, in America, George Bush, he is seeing the devotees, and why are they so happy? So he sent FBI, CIA, he is sending, and they go into the temple, and they are saying, oh yes, they're very good, no drug, no alcohol, none, and all FBI, they come tell George Bush, it's very nice. He read Prabhupada's book. Now George Bush, number one follower of Prabhupada.
Number one follower of Prabhupada, George Bush. So that's all great until you start to believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All FBI. Well, yeah, the FBI did come. The CIA did come. The FBI came to investigate some murders and suicides. Yeah. Families wondering what the hell happened to their children in the Hare Krishna movement. Yeah, the FBI came, and our books were probably looked at. So it's one thing to engage in propaganda. It's another thing if you believe that propaganda.
But it seems now that the vegan propaganda is what many of the devotees are believing. It's not the other way around.
Yeah.
They're preaching to the vegans, but the vegans are preaching to the devotees, and they're accepting their propaganda.
That's the difference.
That's why you get soy milk abhisheks in some temples, mock meat in the restaurants, and governors' restaurants.
Terrible. That reminds me of an event. I heard this from a godbrother, Pushkar, the artist, Pushkar Prabhu. I believe he lives somewhere in Florida. He's a well-known artist. And in the time of Srila Prabhupada, he painted many wonderful paintings for Prabhupada's books. So he told me this once, and he arrived late at night at Bhaktivedanta Manor. I don't know why. I can't remember why he said he was arriving late, but he arrived late, like 12 o'clock. And there was a big program going on. And the devotees at the time, I think the Acharya at that temple was Bhagavan Prabhu, and they were cultivating high society, England and Europe. And the whole temple room was set up with tables and white dining table, tablecloths and silverware and the whole to-do. And they had many high society people over. And this was going on like 12:30, 1 o'clock at night. And Pushkar, I think I'm remembering this correctly. And so he comes in, and Sadaputa, the scientist, was there, and he was outside the temple room, and Pushkar comes in, and he looks around and looks through the door, and he goes, "What's going on?" And Sadaputa tells him, I'm paraphrasing, maybe it wasn't the exact words, it tells him, "Oh, we're cultivating high society." And Pushkar looks through the door, and then he says, Pushkar always had a certain wit and humor about his comments, and he turned to Sadaputa and he said, "Are we cultivating them, or are they cultivating us?" Now, by the time he told me that story, almost every leader that was in there, sannyasi and guru who was in there cultivating high society, had fallen down.
Right.
And in a despicable way. That's propaganda. Also, their bunker last days I don't know, he sent in ramen that had ramen years. Then he said, we'll send this
Division. Yeah.
divisions to, push back the enemy. Destroyed 6 months ago. They were destroyed last year after the day, and he had this whole army head. He's ordering go out. His general, we're afraid. We're done.
The Russians are already in Berlin. Right.
He is believing on propaganda. So this is propaganda. You see, believe propaganda, and of course we see that like Prabhupada did employ propaganda, not to the extent what all aspects of Krishna consciousness are. To inject a little more positive here, just our listeners understand the value of the whole. I think you have some more quotes.
Yeah. Srila Prabhupada says here, but milking the cow means drawing the principles of religiosity in liquid form. The milk means cow's milk because it is liquid form of religious principles. For a Sanatanist, the follower of Vedic principles, it is the duty of every household to have cows and bulls as household paraphernalia, not only for drinking milk, but also for deriving religious principles from her. Cow's milk is required for the purpose of sacrificial fire, and by performing sacrifices, the householder can only be happy.
So, what did you say? Are you saying that was a joke? Was it soy butter or something into the?
No, some temples were doing abhisheks with soy milk. No.
Yeah.
No, I didn't hear that one yet. But soy milk abhisheks.
Yeah. So, I had to say, a soy boy.
He's not soya vinta or soya pop.
He's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I mean?
Vegavana means the one who is I think in control of his Vegas, his senses.
Liquid Giat. So you have no milk, you have your butter, ghee. Where's your religion?
Right.
Where's your brain? Once I devotee were talking, Srila Prabhupada, people that he says, Srila Prabhupada said that one man's place. In other words, we vegetarian food or and one man, another man's said, eat the diet will be good for them. That's saying it is.
Right.
So, as Christians, but the first commandment, thou shalt not kill. Animals, therefore there are no commandments. And not be a Christian. According to the Ten Commandments, if you are killing and eating animals, kill. Okay? You're killing. You can't be. If you're breaking your commandment, you. If you're now, I'm
right.
who don't need to mention if the but there's one or more and in the now they're vegan. So, yeah, that's the question. You're a vegan. You see. How can you be Krishna conscious if you're a vegan? That's because heads. They're dull brain and they cannot understand. So what is the good brain for children developing? Milk.
He says here that cow's milk is particularly essential for developing the finer tissues of the human brain so that one can understand the intricacies of transcendental knowledge.
That little clip got a picture is what filled with a lot of soy.
Yeah.
Soy turned my son to a woman. I wouldn't see it as a negative. Oh boy. Mm-hmm. So his brain already weak and understand things.
Right.
So, I think one of the solutions it's a wise preacher who understands how to teach in various time, place, and circumstances. Mm-hmm. It's a misguided teacher. Very principles, conscious, some deep. I always point this out. For thousands of years of civilization, how is the from some apartment building in Boston or New York or Los Angeles have come or supposed to understood this after thousands of years of cultivation.
Right.
No one understands. No one. Many people have misunderstood in every stage of the brain, New Age are going to come up with the solutions to the world today.
Right.
Anything else there?
There was one point that I know a lot of devotees are talking about nowadays is ahimsa dairy products. Means dairy products that are produced on either devotee farms or in farms where animals are not slaughtered and not mistreated. So a lot of the devotees are saying, well, we should just take milk from those farms.
Right. There'll be a, here, some situation like, down here been for the last few months. I don't take milk from because the farm we were buying from careful what feeding the cow, the commercial milk. I think I pour soy milk over the before.
Yeah.
But when I next week, and I'll be staying in Vermont, they were able to get decent
organic milk,
milk products. And again, I'll take milk. In fact, I'm looking forward to it. Good homemade yogurt from whole milk, etc. So I think at a time, it depends where a person is and and everything like this. I mean, the milk down here is so bad. Drinking it makes me sick.
Yeah.
So, some commercial milks may be better than others and could be taken and everything like this. But the idea of simply rejecting
all milk, yeah,
and the cow and the bull as having no purpose,
yeah,
can't subscribe to that. Will not subscribe to that. All of us have to face death, but I will not die a vegan. Even if the doctor says, if you take milk, it's going to kill you, and no milk products, I'll go, okay, then just give me at least a little bit, because
right.
I don't want to die a vegan. Because vegans, in my opinion, are ultimately cow killers. Two wrongs don't make a right. They do not have the solution. They have created another problem, weak-brained, weak-bodied, weak, self-determined individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And this is what we get from milk. We get healthy, strong mental and physical development, especially for children, because there is up to the age of 25. In India, the old tradition would be that no other milk, and even in high-class families in North India has had a lot of buffaloes for a long time. I was told on numerous occasions that children were never given buffalo milk up to the age of 25. Only cow's milk. No goat's milk. Ugh, goat's milk. Ugh.
Camel.
Camel milk. And somebody might say, camel milk? Come on, you kidding me? In Dubai, Kuwait, Oman, and all those places in that part of the Middle East, they have camel dairies.
Rajasthan, same thing.
Yeah, I've seen people milking the camels in Rajasthan. You have to be careful in India. When somebody says, would you like a cup of hot dude? You got to be careful. Well, one time, elephant milk. Yeah. Pig, yeah, in South America.
South America, yeah.
I think it's Brazil. They have pig milk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one has to be careful about these things. Yeah. So some discrimination required, but to discriminate completely against the cow, that is in itself cow killing. Mm-hmm. And this will not produce the kind of human beings that are necessary for spiritually enlightened society. I think that's the main thing. So devotees should, rise to the occasion and not succumb to the circumstances and preach the right thing. Although we don't have milk products here in our little preaching center in Mexico to speak of, we make the devotees to understand the value of the cow, the value of milk, and when we can get real good milk, whole milk, etc., then yes, milk is at the top of the list of foodstuffs to be offered to Krishna. And in that way, we take prasadam. We are prasadatarians. We're not vegans. We're not vegetarians. We're prasadatarians. All right, so we might have left a few things out, but I think we've got that complaint out of the way. And for me, it was a little bit of a complaint, seeing the growth of veganism in the so-called Vaishnava world. Vaishnavas are not vegans. Vaishnavas are prasadatarians.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other thing?
No, I think we've covered it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you all for watching. Giri, until next time.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.